I'm Bill Van Amberg.
And I'm Alicia Gildy, and we're live in Glasgow, Scotland at COP26.
So exciting to be part of the COP26 climate discussions, and CalSTART, along with industry partners, took great part by going on the industry stage and announcing a global MOU among 15 nations, the first that will have them drive to 100% zero-emission trucks and buses by 2040. It was all about implementation.
Talking about implementation, we were also a part of important discussions focused on action, including a panel that I led with incredible women leaders on the future of international freight.
We'll also take you out in the field. Tech Equipment will be able to see their latest zero-emission truck facility.
There's so much that we're going to cover, and you don't want to miss it. Join us and register on our website for November 19th at 11 a.m. Pacific.
Well, it is that time. Hello, everyone. It's great to be back and to CCTU for our COP26 edition of the Clean Commercial Transportation Update. We're just fresh back, as you saw, from our work in Glasgow, Scotland. And we're going to be stressing three words today on the broadcast: implementation, implementation, implementation. As always, I'm Bill Van Amberg, and happy to be back right here in Studio 1A in Pasadena with my great partner and colleague, Alicia Gildy.
Well, happy Friday, Bill, and great to be back here with all of you and our friends at CCTU. We are in the CalSTART studio producing our live 30-minute broadcast, and many thanks to the wonderful team that's making it happen. Sam Troughton with Drop Media is operating our camera. Amir Sharik made all the graphics. Max Lemieux is running the controls. Casey Okazaki is our producer. Whitney Porter is making sure we look our best, and Carly Magnan is managing our chat.
Well, you'll realize why we need all of that support and the additional support from Edison International today, who is sponsoring our broadcast, to really deep dive. We want to focus on a behind-the-scenes look at COP26. What has been guiding our roadmap over the last year, as we've talked about it on CCTU. The World's Climate Conference took place over the past 2 weeks in Scotland. Delegates from over 200 different nations, protesters from nearly as many, putting pressure on for action, all gathering to negotiate viable solutions to the climate crisis. Both Alicia and I were in Glasgow as part of the Drive to Zero team, Cristiano Fasagna, Peter Jenkins, and the whole team. But the program announced a new global agreement, a new standard for trucks and buses, and to outline the next steps needed in several sessions that we led. That's why we were there.
That's right, and great success, and so proud of our Global Drive to Zero team. Well, at the last conference, the Paris Agreement was signed, legally binding 196 countries to critical and aggressive climate goals. We are anticipating more groundbreaking agreements to come out of the summit's negotiations, and we'll make sure to keep you up to date with all the latest announcements.
You know, at this COP, people wanted to see a bit more action, but 200 countries did sign a general agreement to try and keep the Paris goals alive and limit temperature rise to 1.5 degrees centigrade. That's critical to averting the worst climate impacts. But for our industry, that big news is what we've been talking about. In the transportation sector, we now have clear and specific targets: cars, vans, trucks, and buses, to make sure that we match the reduction goals of Paris. And CalSTART's Drive to Zero program did lead that work. We'll recap this global agreement we announced on the UN stage at COP, and we'll provide some results on the forward-facing sessions we both led on implementation, what comes next, and highlighting industry and government shared commitments, actions, and opportunities to speed zero-emission medium and heavy-duty vehicle deployments.
That's right, and amazing news on the infrastructure front. President Biden signed the new infrastructure bill, and we were going to tell you all about it. We also hear from our partners at Edison International and the urgency to invest in clean transportation and energy.
And finally, with implementation as the key, we're going to take a tour at Tech Equipment, where they're currently selling zero-emission trucks and growing that market. A lot to get through today, right? It feels like the last 2 weeks in Glasgow. We have an action-packed show, but let's get right to it. And we always start with a poll. This one's really timed and themed to what the discussions were in Glasgow.
That's right. One of the goals of the Global Memorandum of Understanding is to reach 30% zero-emission commercial vehicle sales by 2030. All right, so over to you. What policy action do we need to move forward to meet that goal? Is it sales targets, regulations, incentives, or infrastructure?
There's no wrong answer, but I really do think that we need clear directions and regulations, and then we need to backfill with investments and get infrastructure out there. I think that's what we're hearing from a lot of people. We've got to send clear signals from government.
Absolutely. It's definitely going to take a combination of all of these policy goals. All right, so let's take a look at what folks are saying. All right, I see some domination here with infrastructure, big time. You are right. We need to develop that ecosystem to support those goals. Good job, everyone. Thank you so much. All right, Bill, it's time for the news.
Well, let's just clip right through this, but there are some things we want to talk about. First of all, there were announcements, as we mentioned, at Glasgow. It didn't go as far as most people wanted, but we did see agreements in coal. We saw some agreements in methane reduction. We saw some interesting agreements on reforestation. And of course, many of the side agreements, like in transportation, were where the big action was. So we didn't see as many nations come to the table in as meaningful a way as possible, but there was a clear sense of energy at Glasgow, which is keep Paris alive, keep the 1.5 degrees on the table, and I think they accomplished that.
Absolutely, and I think what was also really great, focusing on our indigenous lands and protecting them. Biden also worked to develop banning 20 years of natural gas and oil drilling to support and protect the Chaco Canyon and New Mexico. I think this is a great forward step to protect our indigenous lands.
This is how you do it. You start building out from these really critical areas that
That's
are
right.
so important, and Chaco Canyon is a spiritual site to so many people. One last thing that's really worth pointing out, and that's the two biggest climate emitters in the world kind of signaled they're willing to work together again. The US and China at COP basically came out with a notice that, we had a number of ways that we were working together before. We've had some tension, but we're going to come back to the table when it comes to climate. That's really important. While they didn't announce any specific agreements, they did announce we're back at the table to talk, and that's important.
That's right. And what was also quite incredible was the protest at COP26, seeing all the people that have come together to stress the need for climate action and to bring us to 1.5 degrees and keeping their eye on that. It was also quite amazing, Bill, even inside of COP26, seeing the youth come together and to raise their voices and to be a part of that action. So I was really proud to see the youth leadership there.
Yeah, and we were out on the streets. There were 100,000 people on the streets of Glasgow on one day from all over the world, all different sectors. So I think that pressure made a real difference inside the halls.
I agree with that. Well, now we're going to transition to what we've been talking about for the past few months on our roadmap to zero emissions. Bill and I traveled to Glasgow for COP26 and participated in multiple sessions around moving toward rapid zero emissions in transport. While in Glasgow, there were protests. We were just showing you that, but it made an impact on the urgency that is needed to combat climate change. CalStart's Drive to Zero program hosted Aligning Industry and Government to Support a Zero-Emission Medium and Heavy-Duty Vehicle Future, where we brought industry leaders together to discuss ways to support future deployments. Let's play some of that footage of the key messages that we heard.
Have a lot to look forward to in 2022. Peter, what do we have in store?
Well, a lot of exciting news coming on the heels of our MOU announcement. We learned that the next Clean Energy Ministerial meeting, CEM 13, will be hosted by the great city of Pittsburgh next September 2022. So we're ready to hit the ground running in planning our Zero Emission Truck Global Expo, where we really hope to bring a lot of our partners and their amazing technology on the ground in front of CEM delegates to really demonstrate that the ambition of the MOU is the technology is there, that it is,
it's achievable,
it's there for us.
Real, yeah.
That's right.
One thing that we can really see here is action on the ground on the economic sectors that really, really matter. So for us, it's really transportation. I mean, it is the first time that medium and heavy-duty vehicles are on the agenda in a very substantial way.
That's a big deal.
For the very first time.
I think everyone is ready to focus on implementation. There's been a lot of talk of, ambition, of trying to sort of create momentum, but the momentum is there. We've built it. It's time to implement now. And just in the session today, our friends at DHL were talking about how the MOU doesn't just send a signal, it provides assurance to industry
That was
to
a big
invest.
point, yeah.
I thought that was a really important one, that we are ready to invest and move forward. I think that's come through loud and clear.
Those are really the big takeaways. I think as we talked about it, and the bridge overlooking past the security to where the COP was, there really was movement this time. It was hard to see, it wasn't as big as people wanted, but particularly in transportation, we were quite excited with that. The exciting news on the SEM that Peter pointed out, and by the way, that was Cristiano Fasagna and Peter Jenkins from our Drive to Zero team who were talking there. We're going to be doing the Zero Emission Truck Expo in September in Pittsburgh. But the outcomes from all of this is really to raise awareness of the reality of this global effort, that governments and industry are supporting this change, to highlight the pathways forward and develop action plans, and then just to make sure people realize the reality of this technology. I think one of the things that was really powerful for us as we led these panels was to hear the voices from both the Clean Energy Ministerial, the government side, but also the industry side. We're going to hear from some of those voices. Let me set up really quickly. We're going to hear from Dan Dorner, who is the head of the Clean Energy Ministerial, who spoke. We'll also hear from Avinash Roganar, who is the president of Arrival, one of the most innovative technology companies moving forward. Volker Ratzmann from DHL, and also Herman Sips from the government of the Netherlands. So Max, let's go ahead and run that video.
Be impatient, we must be demanding of ourselves, and we must be ambitious. We may call it a memorandum of understanding, but in my mind, it's really a rallying cry. Asking more to rally to us and join us in achieving our mission to decarbonise medium and heavy-duty road transport. Because I think finally, wouldn't it be wonderful if this were the leadership group, the leading global actors, that can turn around in 2041 and say we did it.
So let me start by saying that the MOU, now that we discussed the why, it's like, what is the what, right? So we're calling it overall, we're calling the global agreement, right? And this global agreement is composed of two different parts. So one is the MOU with countries, where there's 15 countries, leading countries have a line ambition on when they're going to reach 100%. This has never been done. Countries alone are not going to be able to move the market. They can set the ambition, they can set policies, regulations, incentives, but they're not going to be able to do everything. So it's really important, and currently we have over 35 endorsers by subnational governments, by manufacturers, fleets, infrastructure providers, other partners, all aligned under the same ambition.
And so this MOU really brings together the intention and now moving into action for countries that are really putting their hands up and saying, we're going to get there, we're going to be first. For a company like Arrival, when we look at where we're going to engage and place microfactories, these countries become crucial countries to speak to about how can we get local production there with affordable, best-in-class electric products and then start that transition now. And I think that's what's interesting about what we've announced. It's that it moves now into action. The steps have to start today for us to get anywhere in 2030, and I think that's the most exciting thing here.
I thought. So for yourself, and as you look at the MOU signatory nations, what do you think are the next big actions over the next couple of years working together?
Well, I think continue to talk to a number of countries we couldn't bring into the fold this time around. But continue that very inspirational sort of conversations we had with Cristiano and with you, and sort of keep knocking on their doors, because they're sensing the inevitability, they're sensing the logic. So continue to make the argument and demonstrate maybe at the same time it's doable. I mean, if you sort of have that combination now between governments, enterprise and business, cities, technology developing, costs coming down. That's almost like the renewable energy sort of revolution. We continue to hope to see, more uptake, prices going down, even faster uptake, and then the only business model by 2040 is zero emissions.
Well, let me just say it's been inspirational to be able to work with a government that moves so fast and so hard. Thank you so much for your partnership.
Thanks very much, Bill, as well. It was equally inspiring. Thanks.
Oh, wow. Herman is the best, and many thanks to Herman Sips from the Netherlands, working closely with Cristiano Fontana on our team to bring 15 countries to sign the global MOU. What an incredible accomplishment. And I had the pleasure of moderating that session, and for me, Bill, and hearing from Herman, was the importance of bringing surrounding countries to sign the global MOU and what that meant to building out the ecosystem, the infrastructure that's needed in order to deploy those zero-emission commercial vehicles.
Yeah, because you've got to cross boundaries.
That's
you can't
right.
just do it within your own boundaries. I think the other thing that was a big takeaway for me on the MOU announcement was not just that industry like Scania was moving towards 60% zero emissions by 2030 and what Arrival and others are doing. It was the sense of relief that we have a clear signal about where we're going. And I think the signal we heard even from industry that government has to set these clear targets, we will now follow and we know where to put our investment. That was really powerful. And I think we did the start of that at COP.
Absolutely. And Bill, we were also given a great opportunity to lead 2 important panels at COP26. And I was given the honor to moderate a session on the future of international road freight, focused on women empowerment and their role in advancing and accelerating the deployment of zero-emission vehicles, and specifically looking at opportunities to reduce emissions from the freight sector. And with me on that panel, we had Trudy Harrison, who is Minister, Parliamentary Undersecretary of State for Transport for the Department of Transport for the UK, Mary Nichols, former chair of the California Air Resources Board, and then we also had
Rachel Moncrief
Rachel
from
Moncrief
ICCT.
from the ICCT, as well as we had Cynthia Williams, Global Director of Sustainability and Homologation and Compliance for Ford Motors, and then Angela Holtberg, from Head of Sustainable Mobility at the Inca Group. So let's go ahead and show some of that footage that we had there.
And how amazing it is to be here amongst such a strong female representation, ladies talking about freight. Come on. Not just because it's the right thing to do. Yeah.
End of the day, I think we're beginning to see now a real uptake and the advantages of driving zero, as the minister indicated, become apparent once people have a chance to actually work with them. So it's very much of a virtuous circle once you start to get the new clean technologies out and people start to see that they can use them, and then you help make them affordable, and then you've got real change happening.
And I hope that you can all learn from our trials and the real life examples across the UK, and you know, align with equally ambitious targets for your own countries, your own organisations. So from me, it's trials.
We have a role to play, and we're here to help, and we're here to help accelerate the zero emissions future. Thank you.
Really investing, putting our money where our mouth is, and just finding the partners we need and the solutions we need to actually reach our targets. So we're very much investing in collaboration.
And now thinking future, like the next 20 years. Now we have an even bigger challenge ahead of us. We have to completely transition away from fossil fuel and completely transition to clean and renewable energy to power all of those trucks on the road.
Okay, I'm going to start by making it 403. Infrastructure, infrastructure, infrastructure. It is really crucial.
Well, Angela hit it, infrastructure. There were a lot of takeaways on that panel, but first of all, Alicia, great job moderating that. And that was such a powerhouse of women leaders. It was phenomenal. And I think that maybe the biggest takeaway of all was we need more voices at the table, women leaders, people of color, people from all parts of the world, if we're going to do this big lift. It can't be the old, reliable people that everybody's always gone to. This was a panel about change.
That's right. And again, great honor. And I am inspired by the 5 women that was a part of that discussion. And what a great opportunity. Well, as we previewed in our opening today, we talked about the infrastructure bill passing, moving from the momentum of COP26 on November 15th. President Biden signed the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. This $1 trillion bipartisan bill will invest in America's infrastructure and impact the clean transportation industry.
Let's just review really quick because it's a big deal. By the numbers, $5 billion for clean transit buses, $5 billion for electric and clean school buses, $2.5 billion to electrify port equipment and trucks, $250 million for electric ferries, which is actually a segment that's coming on, $3 billion to enhance grid flexibility, including vehicle-to-grid technologies. This is a big deal.
That's right, and continuing $7 billion to improve the supply chain for batteries, including sourcing and recycling critical minerals. Now going on to infrastructure, $7.5 billion for a nationwide network of charging stations and along our corridors. That's right. $5 billion in grants for states to deploy public EV chargers with a focus on rural, disadvantaged, and hard-to-reach communities. And then $2.5 billion to support stations for EV charging, including refueling for hydrogen, propane, and natural gas. The administration said it will launch $240 million in grants within the next 45 days and identify projects to begin moving on within 60 days. This is definitely exciting legislation that will continue to move the industry forward and bring these technologies to different regions throughout the U.S.
I know we're ready to hit the ground with our partners, and Alicia is already trying to scope out the corridors that we really want to target and in the fast charge hubs around key freight segment areas. So I think one of the things that as we digest this bill and everything it encompasses, it's what it's going to do to drive the market. And it was really great to see the federal government now investing in such a big way. And we do hope Build Back Better also passes through, because implementation is our theme. This is where we need to be focusing our work, not debating the pathways forward anymore. Infrastructure is certainly one of the most critical enablers of this rapid transition to zero emissions transport, and we need to see it for air quality and climate. That's why we're actually incredibly proud, and it's very timely that our supporting partner for this broadcast is Edison International. They also attended COP and really highlighted the need for faster investment. Let's highlight this member company and play a clip from their event.
Why lead the charge to cleaner, more renewable energy? Why strive to cut emissions from buildings and freeways? Because we believe everyone in every community should have the right to breathe clean air. SCE, energy for what's ahead.
The privilege of co-chairing a task force that our EEI has on transportation electrification. So we've been working with Ford, with GM, with charging companies, with large fleet managers, right, who are going to be making the first major scale purchases of vehicles. And you realize the level of cooperation and collaboration that's required to have such a retooling of the economy happen, and to happen in short order, right? Because when you're talking about the California example, and I'm sure we'll get into this in a little bit here, but we're not just focused on 2045 and net zero. We're focused on that waypoint of 2030 that the state actually built into law, right? We have law in the state that says that we will have a 40% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions relative to 1990 levels by 2030. So last time I checked, clock's ticking, that's 8 years away. And it's massive investments going to be required across the economy just for that 8-year mark. So, you know, you need a strong partnership across all sectors and across government and private industry and consumers to get there.
Well, that's right. The clock is ticking, and we are going to need partnerships to move forward. Well, Edison International is the parent company of Southern California Edison, the local electric utility to about 5 million residential and business accounts. As you just heard, they are leaning in on zero-emission transportation as a part of their vision for a decarbonized economy. One of the things that we know fleet operators always have good questions on is charging infrastructure. How does it work with the electric company? Are there any incentive projects? And what about construction? Well, Southern California Edison has a program called Charge Ready Transport that offers low to no cost electrical system upgrades to support the installation of charging equipment for qualifying medium and heavy duty trucks, shuttles, buses, vans, and more. There's some great information on their website, so do check it out, www.sce.com/CRT.
A lot to remember, but there's a lot of dollars there. Edison is a great partner on this for fleets, so we want more people to know about that. You know, we know the direction and scale we must reach. It's all about getting it done now, implementation. And that's why we've really been focusing our CCTU segments on people taking action. And there's a great example today with a group that is really starting to invest in putting zero-emission trucks on the ground. Our team had an opportunity to visit Tech Equipment, which is out in Southern California, and it really highlighted what they're doing to gear up for zero-emission trucks. Let's take a look at that video.
My name is Dwayne Welty, Director of Fixed Operations at Tech Equipment in Southern California. We are a Volvo and Mack dealership. We have 30 locations across the West Coast. Where we are in Fontana is our largest and newest location. The trucking industry demand for EV vehicles is absolutely growing, and I think a lot of customers are still feeling it out. More advanced customers are definitely taking hold of it, and we want to be that provider for them. So we are currently in the service shop at Tech Equipment Fontana. We have 82 service bays, and at any given moment we have over 50 trucks that we're working on. Not everybody can work on EV vehicles. Depending on the job itself, we have various levels of expertise, all the way up to master technician. The yellow fencing that you see is to outline the areas for our EV vehicles, since those get serviced in a different sort of way and need to have certain protocols attached to those.
Daniel, you took me on a really great ride right now. What vehicle is this?
The vehicle that this is a Volvo VNR, fully electric semi vehicle.
Do you enjoy driving this vehicle?
Yes, I do. It is very torquey, quiet, power is there when needed, and the capability of just pulling it up to the charger and charging it for a couple of hours will get you a full charge and off you go.
And how easy is it to charge the truck?
It's very easy. Just pull up to the charger, go ahead and grab the charging cable, release the charger cable port, plug the charger in. It went from yellow to green, so this indicates that the truck is charging at the moment. Depending on the charger that we have, these right here are about 150 kilowatts. You'll get from about 0 to a full charge, probably about an hour and a half. Now, if you're going to use a 50-watt charger, most likely it's going to take about 6 to about 12 hours to go ahead and charge from 0 to a full charge.
Do you hear about a lot of more interest in the mechanics in moving to zero-emission technologies?
So the future and maintenance of this fully electric semi, I see it for cities and stuff like that, very eligible, less fumes and stuff like that for the emission side. And I do see this going pretty big on the city driving and stuff like that.
Well, great job to Casey and Whitley and Sam for putting that wonderful video together and interview. It was great to get out there with Tech and to see the dealership and to see the zero-emission trucks that they have out on the market. Well, with all of that we discussed today, with commitments to zero emissions, dealerships like Tech are out there selling these vehicles. More fleets and companies are jumping on board to become adopters of zero-emission vehicles.
You know, it's real. And let's close with that thought. From the big stage at COP26 to the maintenance bays at Tech in Fontana, the work now is implementation. While the results of COP26 were not as aggressive as we needed, there was clearly progress being made. And moving beyond debate to a sense of urgency to act now and implement. In transport, we now have crossed the crossroads. The path is clear now that we must achieve zero emissions in heavy transport by 2040. It's a big lift, it's doable, and our work together now is to make that happen. Thank you so much for joining this broadcast today in our review of COP26. Our last live CCTU broadcast for the year will be on December 3rd, but for now, I'm Bill Van Amberg.
And I'm Alicia Gildy, and we will leave you today with the sounds of the kind people and pageantry of Scotland. For the entire CCTU team, stay safe, happy Thanksgiving, and we will
CCTU soon.